Right, let's move on to the next question. Otherwise, we'll get stuck on this.
Any tips for players who can only assemble one model a week? And sorry, but can only play one game in a week.
Oh God, yeah, no more hobby chat. Right, yes. Any tips for players who can only get one game in a week? And so the context of this is they can't play on TTS, don't have the time, whatever, or willpower like to beat up the computer. Which I do get. If it is a different game on TTS, it is a different game. Interestingly, like this is like tangent, but I felt like the World Championships played more like a TTS tournament than the like a regular tournament because of
because you flipped a table.
Accidentally click the flip table button and all the models go everywhere. No, they did have like really like where the table joints were, like it was right where your knee would go, and like a few times I knocked the table. I was like, oh my God, please don't knock everything over. Really awkward. Anyway, right, yeah. So if TTS is off the cards, what do you do? So the first thing I'd say is, make the game that you do play like really count. And the way you do that is obviously by playing Turning Point 5, which is what we're branding the debrief now of a game. And you analyze the match, right? Don't actually play Turning Point 5, unless you're the world champs and play 7 of them. But like analyze the match, right? And really try and have like a objective view on how the game went. And even if you won, do the same thing, right? Because a lot of times people win, they go, yeah, won that game, therefore I must have played perfectly, and I'm going to move on. And I think you want to have like 2 stages of like of analysis. So you have like a hot wash up, which is like immediately as soon as you finish the game, ask your opponent, get your gut feelings, maybe take some notes and be like, like what do we think went right? What do we think went wrong? And it might be things like someone says, oh, I was really unlucky to not kill this model at this time doing this thing. Or whatever it's going to be, right? Like capture your initial gut feelings. Ask your opponent, how did they think it went? What went well? What didn't go well? What could have been better next time? That sort of thing, right? So capture that data straight away, and then do like a cold wash up where you test those assumptions. So take it away and look at the maths, right? So like, let's say you thought you were unlucky not getting a kill at this certain time. Well, go run it through the calculator and figure out what the percentage chance was. Like, is that a valid assumption? Were you diced, or were you actually taking odds on a 40%? I don't know, whatever it's going to be. To try to make it a bit more objective in that sense. And then go through the sort of the debrief process, which we talked about before, and I'll just run through it again. But like, what you want to try and analyze, or what you want to get to at the end of a debrief process is the root cause. And the reason why you want to get to the root cause is because you want to identify what really went wrong, so you can then give a correct fix for next time. So you can also do this for games you win, right? Like I think often it's easy to say, oh, I'll do it for the games I lose because I've lost this game and this was the reason why. But also do it for the games you win and go, I won this game, and what was the decision or the reason why I won this game in this instance? And then you can ask yourself sort of the question of, well, what if that hadn't happened, and how would I secure another win in future had my opponent denied me that opportunity, right? So try your hardest to do that, because I think a lot of people do the hot wash up, they do it right there and then, and they don't do the cold one, and your emotions are still in the game, right? Like, so you're still feeling the good luck or the bad luck and whatever. But here's another quote: like, the dice don't care for emotions, right? So the odds were always the odds, and you just have to try and look at it in that objective way. So that's the first bit of advice that I think is potentially useful, right? So like doing that analysis, doing that process, where you can go. The next thing I'd say is, where possible. So if you're at a club, right, and you're playing, and they have a lot of different teams. So I'm really blessed. We've got 60 players in our group now, and so almost every faction is represented, right? But where possible, ensure you play different teams, play different maps, play different missions, and mix up, play different players where you can, right? So if you only get one game a week, go down to your club. If you play the same person 3 nights in a row, or like 3 weeks in a row, be like, hey, like, I would love to play you again. but instead, can I play someone else because I want to get exposure to a different team? So do that. Like if you keep turning up and you keep playing Octarius, well then switch it up. Play some Chalnath, play some Nachman, play ITD, whatever. Right? Like constantly change your gaming area so it's giving you new challenges and all that sort of stuff, and make sure you go through each mission. Right? So it might be you just have to be quite like prepared with it, and you just go, all right, this week I'm going to play loot, this week I'm going to play whatever, and try and do that where you can. Finally, there's maybe one more after this, but so the next thing I would say is you can do like a psychological prep, not psychological prep, educational prep, whatever, right? So you can read other teams' rules. And you have like a head game, right? So if you have like a lunch break, you can quickly go, all right, well, all right, let's say I play Legionary and I'm going to play against today Commandos, right? Then you just go through your head and go, well, what equipment would I take? What would my roster be? What options am I going to do? And like think about the missions and go, if it was this mission, what would I take? If it was this mission, what would I take? And try to like formulate a game plan in your head with your team as to what you'd run into that opposing team, and then read their rules and go, right, so with this knowledge of how I would intend to play the game, what could they do that's going to then break that? Like, how could they do something that's going to interrupt or make it not work? And if you can do that, I think that's a really useful way of analysing it. And also at the same time concurrently learning the opponent's teams, because you need to learn what everyone else does, because that's where you get gotchas or you don't necessarily understand and you get caught out. So get familiar with those other teams by reading their rules and then understanding exactly how they're going to shut you down, and try and choose a different team every time, right? Because that's also really useful. And then finally, I'd say if you can, like, try to play faster, like, and see if you can get in that gaming evening that you have 2 games rather than 1, because quite often you might have like 3 hours to play a game, and maybe you can like pre-set up a board that someone has, or someone can turn up a little bit earlier and set a board up, and then you can like just get straight into it and just play back to back and just reverse, right? And let's say that you want to tackle on the first game, like deliberately make yourself defender on game 2, right? Like instantly reverse that scenario so that you're playing a subtly different game, and see if you can learn from those mistakes straight away. And that might be a really quick way of doing it. And if you just re-rack and just go again, then that's usually quite quick, rather than trying to play in a front of the game. So if you can do that, that'd be again, like that doubles your exposure straight away, right? So those are my main tips. Is there anything that you think you want to add in, Connor, on that?
I think there's something to be said about just setting up half a board and then putting it against a mirror and then playing a game against yourself. But obviously, I'm joking with that. But what's your opinion of actually?
Well, they're all the same dice as well.
Yeah, the same models, these identical movements. It's bizarre. What was your actual thought process, though? Like seriously, on having a game against yourself, and almost like you assemble both sides, and then you like play your moves, and you move around and you play as the opponent and think about it that way. Is there any value or benefit there?
I mean, there's potentially, right? Like you'll learn their team's rules and that sort of stuff. But I think there's a risk where you get like a little bit stagnant, where you're only ever seeing it through your own perspective, right? And quite often it's when people
no gotchas. No,
like people play something because you're essentially learning what you already know, right? Because you're playing against yourself with a team that you know, and you know their rules and that sort of stuff, which can be good, right? To enforce learning and understand where you're at and make sure that you're not going too far off, whatever. But equally, it could potentially, make false learning, where you've misunderstood a rule and you keep misapplying the rule, or you haven't seen how a team can be played in a different meta and that sort of stuff. So those are the sort of things that I would say are my main tips. And as well, like this is again why I'm a massive advocate for tournaments, right? Because if you can go to a tournament, you commit to a day, you will get 4 games. And let's say you can only get 1 game in a week, right? But once a month you play a tournament which is like 4 rounds. suddenly you've just doubled your exposure, right? Because normally a month you're getting 4 games, now you're getting 8 games. And because it's 4 games back to back, the learning and the sort of repetitive learning that you can have is so good. And the compound learning of being able to take a lesson from one game and immediately apply it without a week delay is so useful. So, and it gives you that exposure to how other people play. So that's probably what I would say are the main tips. Do you want to press on, Connor? That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback, so drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.